Many people have problems with art and not with reality.
So why is art different?
It's pretty simple, right?
This is knowledge, this is thinking, this is thought.
Yeah, it does something strange with your head.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair.
Bring it.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair. My name is Ando. We are joined today by the artist extraordinaire, Malin Gabriella Norden. She was here in town for the Chart Art Fair because the homies over at Steinsland Berliner gallery were showing a bunch of her work. This is the last recording from Chart this year. I wasn't familiar with her work, but she has a very convincing practice and an incredible work ethic, I found out. It was really awesome to talk to her. And I think she keeps the game of being an artist to its bare bones. And I mean that positively. There is not a lot of extraneous material around her work and around her practices. But for me, it's always a pleasure to talk to people whose work is dictated by this relationship to their materials and their drive to move said work forward. I get it. I know this sounds a little vague, but just like Zen from last episode, these are practitioners who dedicate themselves to the process of making, and they view their work in the long term. So, putting it simply, I find it really refreshing, and it's not at all a disadvantage. So let's get straight into it. Please enjoy my talk with Malin.
Sometimes I just want to disappear, like take away everything. Like I'm not existing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. In the beginning, I was really like, I don't want to show how I look or something. I want people to see my art for what it is. But
that's
then
basically
it's like impossible.
That is impossible because people want to talk to you.
Yeah, and it's also fun when you notice that people get more and more, like when you meet people who like your work and you talk to them and they get even more like, they get a background story, and it's nice because you feel like you connect in some way.
Yeah, and like that's honestly the truth of what I do here too, because like I can look at the art, but sometimes the story is better anyways. Yeah. You can actually hear why and how, and and it's just like going to art school. You meet your friends and you talk about it and you dig into it.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, here it is, done, goodbye,
Yeah.
Which is, but there's that whole thing. I mean, I like to call it the art mafia, the whole idea that there's just this world of people who either want to use you for something or, maybe that's a little negative, but in theory, they just, there's a system. Let's just call it that. There's a system in place. It's like going to the bank. You have to talk to the right people. You have to go around and that could be terrifying.
Yeah.
It can be exhilarating. If you win, you're like, fucking, I did it,
Yeah, but I think it's hard also. Like, I usually don't go to openings and stuff because I think it's a weird, what do you say, stämning.
Yeah, it's a weird atmosphere.
Yeah, but...
What about your own openings? How do they feel?
Yeah, I go to them. In the beginning, it was horrible. Like, I hid in the office somewhere when I had, even like in group shows, I thought it was like horrible because it's weird, like putting yourself out there. And even if people don't know it's my work in a group show or something, it's still like people are looking at it and like talking about it, and it feels like they're talking about you. So it was really hard in the beginning. But my last opening at the gallery in Stockholm, Steinsland Berliner, was last Friday, like 2 weeks ago. And it was the first time I actually felt like happy and like didn't go home and cry afterwards.
So what happened? What do you think the difference is?
I think it was like, I've been working really intense this summer because I had like 3 shows planned in a couple of weeks. So it's like the opening in Stockholm and then Chart, and then I'm exhibiting in LA next weekend.
Jesus Christ.
So, and I had to produce works for all of those.
New works for each. Wow.
Yeah. So I think it was something with like that I'm in the middle of the process, and it felt like more honest in a way, and it felt really scary to show them. So then when people show their like appreciation, and like I could take it in more than when I had like everything planned and I know what I'm gonna exhibit, and I don't know, it felt like really genuine in some way.
Because you didn't have a chance to spin it off into something else?
No, it was like I have a studio that I'm sharing with 4 other artists, so it's kind of like every time I'm finished with a work, I have to put it aside, like maybe tape it in or something, so you can't see everything at once. So the first time I saw it was like 2 days before the show together.
Yeah, that's terrifying right there.
And then it felt like it was just right. And then when people showed also that they liked it, it was really meaningful.
There's really nothing, I mean, it strikes me like often people ask me what I do, and I will tell them I'm a photographer or I make radio or something. I don't want to say I'm an artist, because that conversation is really awful most of the time. Because like, people, like, the context is so weird.
Yeah, I know. It was easier when you studied art.
Yeah, because you're like, I'm a student.
I study art, or I'm a student. But then it's like, I'm an artist. It's like,
you're like, what does that mean? It's super strange. But I got hung up on something you said earlier about how it felt honest.
Yeah.
What does that exactly mean to you? Like, what is that? Is that important to you?
Yeah, it's really important. Like, usually when I make my work, I never know how it's going to end up. It's not like I have a sketch or a visual, like, it's just more of a feeling, or like I can sense like different shapes and colors that I want to get out of my... As
you go? Or?
Yeah, exactly. So
it's always a blank canvas.
Yeah, like sometimes I can have... I like to sit at home and draw in like when it's dark and I watch TV and like listen to music or whatever and don't care so much. And sometimes I can find like a composition or like a line or a movement in those, and I can look at it and like maybe start off with something in that, but then it changes along the way because like everything I do leads to the next step. So sometimes I like switch over the painting from...
Or you turn it on its head or something?
And then back, and it can change a lot.
And it's all just gut feeling.
Yeah, it's like, for me, it's like a exploration or something. It's like, but now I'm doing this, what will happen if and like how color changes their surrounding and different shapes also, the whole feeling of the work. So
and then when you say feeling, is that like an aesthetic thing?
Yeah, I think it's both an aesthetic thing and like just like, because sometimes I have periods when I feel like I've lost it all, when I can't work.
Those are some like, dark moments.
And it's like, what am I doing now? Like, this is the only thing I can do, like, and what I want to do and what I have to do, but now I can't. And it's like, you lost something and you never know if it's going to come back. Yeah. But usually it does. And I can like feel how it's growing inside me. Like it.
So if you don't work for a while, do you start getting frustrated?
Yeah, like
that happens to me
really
too.
Frustrating, and I take it out on other things, and then when people. I like start to work again, it's like, oh, it was just this. Like I just needed to work again.
It's weird how that happens.
Yeah,
how you become kind of like, I don't know. I've thought a lot recently about the whole pressure of making art, because I can't really figure out if it's anymore because I want to make art or because I feel like I should make art. Yeah. It's hard to differentiate at a certain point.
Yeah, but I think like the feeling of you have to do it. Like it's just something, like you get in a bad mood if you don't do it. It's like it's you who has to like let it out. And, like even when I have those periods of like I feel like I can't make work, I still sit at home and draw all the time just to like. But then it's really nice to like watch TV and have the lights dim because you don't care so much. You just do it, and then maybe it comes out something really great of it, and then you can.
Right, and you're not overthinking it.
Yeah, exactly, because that's the worst. Like when I start to respect the canvas too much and like think,
be too careful.
Yeah, it's like should I nah.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't go well. Like you should. For me, it's just like out with it. And
although it can go too far too.
Yeah,
that's that weird balance.
Yeah,
I've done a little bit of teaching, and I've thought a lot about how do you explain to someone that process which takes 10, 15, 20 years of finding out the feeling you have for something. And it's a weird thing. It just slowly becomes clearer when something's right or not right. And you can't really explain it, but it comes from practice, just doing it all the time.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to like, it can feel like, oh, I made this like painting in 1 hour, but it's not like 1 hour. You had like all those
took me 20 years to build up to that hour.
And it's kind of a nice release when it's like you have been building up something for a while, and then it just like
you're like, I'm good at what I do.
And then maybe it's over again, but it's like you get a release. And
sure. Well, it is those ups and downs, which is I think part of the reason that we do it, because you can get a job. I worked for 10 years in a job that was very consistent, and I knew what to expect, and it was pretty much the same thing every day, and that had its advantages, but also I never want to do that again. No. So for whatever reason, I need the ups and downs.
Yeah, it's like a relationship, like a love relationship with yourself. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hate it and love it at the same time. But it's the only thing, like, it's also, I'm really happy that I can live of it, because it's just natural what I do. It's not something I have to.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
Where did it start for you? Have you always been drawing with the lights off?
I've been drawing a lot, like every kid almost.
Sure.
But
you just never stopped.
My parents were really like appreciating and like didn't. I feel like many people who go to art school really had to fight for it against their parents. Like the parents were like, "No, you're not gonna make any money," or like you don't get a job.
Get a goddamn job.
And my parents never were like that. They were really like supporting me.
Do they have any sort of arts background at all?
My dad paints a lot, like, but
for fun.
Yeah, or he used to be like what do you say, restaurat, like
restorer.
Yeah. And he like decoration, painting, and stuff like that.
So like doing gold leaf.
Exactly, and like Russian icons and stuff like that. So he has really like a patience, because he mixes his own colors with pigment, and like
he's good with his hands.
Yeah, but I paint with like acrylics, and I don't have any patience, and I'm like right away want to do it now.
Sure.
So
well, you got to get away from your parents too.
Yeah, but it's fun because I can also feel like now when I'm getting like a bit older and like been doing this for some time, it feels like my work is starting to merge together. Like before, my collages were like collages in a certain way, and my paintings. Now I can feel like they're starting to merge, and like also like artists that I liked when I was a kid and took a bit for granted when I was like a teenager has really come back to me, and like you can really feel how important they are for you, and like how much they have brought in your sights, and like so it's also like everything just like falls in place.
That's what I'm saying with that whole thing, where like that you slowly develop some sort of, I don't know how to explain it. It's like they are like the presence of some sort of grand scheme of art, whether it's outside or inside you, and you just like, it does start to merge. It does start to come together. And I think that's also like, for me, one of the guiding principles is that work has to be multidimensional. Yeah. It has to work on more level than just one. Yeah. And that's that sort of thing. You start to merge these different levels and ideas, and, whether it's processes or techniques or, whatever the fuck it is, they start to come together. Yeah. Which means you get work which has different layers of meaning, different layers of technique, different, and you can't appreciate other people's work like that until you can see it as well.
No, exactly.
And that's, I think that's where art school is good.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider going to anything else but art school, or by the time that was around, that was it? That's what you were going to do?
No, I was like, after I went to like a preparing art school, I started to work a bit as a set designer on my
scenography.
Like,
for like theater or
no, like
movies?
mostly like music videos
okay.
and some commercials as well. It was like my extra job to get in money when I studied, and I thought it was quite fun. Or I thought it was really fun, but I hate compromising. Nice. And like, especially in commercial, like with clients, and it was like, and I felt it took so much of my energy of like making my own things that really matter for me. So when I got into Bergen art school, I felt like this is really good. Like I have to go away from Stockholm, just focus on myself, like what I want to do. And yeah.
How old were you when you started?
I began when I was 20, I think.
Was it hard to focus, or were you already at that point ready to go?
No, it was quite, I think it was really nice to go somewhere where I didn't know anyone. I didn't have to like relate to anyone else's schedule. It was just like, now I'm going to focus on my own thing and like explore it and just see what happens.
I had a hard time with that because I also went to art school when I was 20, and I didn't fuck off completely. There was a lot of people who were a lot worse than I was, but I could have used the time better in retrospect. I could have, it was a mix of being like, I'm 20 years old.
Time better.
True. And I'm particularly hard on myself. But, I think back, I have a friend who's just left to go to school in Gothenburg at the Art Academy there. And I was like, look, dude, whatever you do, you're never going to have better conditions than you have now. You have no market pressure. You don't have to sell anything. All you have to do is produce things for the sake of making them.
This,
facilities, materials, people willing to talk to you about it. It does not get better than this.
No, but it's funny because people told me that too, and even though
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just the nature of it. Yeah. It's I don't know. Moving away from home for the first time is always, but then again, also in America, we are a little more. What do you say? Like, it is until you move to college that you really flip out. Whereas I think here in Scandinavia, you're allowed to flip out a little earlier. And that's nothing against, I was allowed to flip out earlier than most, but it's just, there's a general vibe. Oh, I'm away from my parents. Now it's time, time to stand on my head. But it's good to hear that you could focus in that case. You really were able to put in the work. And as you said to me earlier, you were starting to show work while you were still in school.
Yeah, exactly. Because Steinsland Berliner contacted me like half a year before I took my bachelor.
But you said also you were part of some group shows beforehand.
Like both in Sweden and also abroad. I think it was really weird because my Tumblr just spread like crazy.
Yeah, that's the big question. How does this happen? So you have a Tumblr that
I still have a Tumblr, but I don't update it so often because now Instagram is more.
Right, that was the thing that was the Tumblr. I remember that was huge.
Yeah, and I started like my Tumblr when I moved to Bergen just to be like my friends and my family like
Here's what I'm
update,
doing.
and also it's nice for yourself when you do stuff to see what you have done, because in the studio in school maybe you have to like get rid of stuff because it's so small. So it was nice to like have like an archive or something. And then people start to reblog, and then it just spread. And
now, did you send it out to people, or it literally just took on a life of its own?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't feel like that happens very often.
No, it was like a snowball effect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the great thing in that case is that your works were good enough that people wanted to see them and wanted to share them. Yeah. And that's not nothing.
No, I'm really happy about it.
But at the same time, I don't think that happens to a lot of people. Like a lot of, you must have at a certain point hit the wall where then you have to turn it over into being a type of salesperson. At a certain point, you have to go out there and shake some hands. Yeah. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier. You got to go to the opening. You got to talk to people. That happens.
I hate.
Well, if you get to a position where a gallery or someone else can represent you to that level, they can do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
But I think the reality for a lot of young people is they have to fuck young people, for anybody who's not have someone behind them. You have to go and do it yourself. And that's tremendous that you were able to swing that interest in Tumblr into a career.
Because it's like, because then I got a show in a group show, and then that group show led to another group show, and then so it just like continued.
What do you attribute that to?
I'm just happy, and I feel really lucky, because the Steinsland Berliner started to represent me before I even graduated. So I moved back to Stockholm, and I started to work at a kindergarten for like 4 months. But then I felt like I loved it to work at a kindergarten. I always had a dream as well to do it because I love kids. But then I felt like it took too much of my own time. I thought I would be able to do both, but it was a full-time job, so
that's what happens.
It was impossible, so I had to quit. And then since then, I just been working with my art.
Amazing.
I've been doing, like, for my friends, I do record sleeves sometimes also, but it's mostly for fun and not paid. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I think, it's interesting. We don't have a story here of struggle or, eating cereal for 6 months in order to make it work.
Yeah, I've been like, it's not like I was like rich or something like that. It was still,
of course.
But of course, I've been having it really the easy way.
Well, the thing is, people forget also that being an artist is, in a lot of ways, a working class job.
Yeah.
And you have to put in the time. And I think that's also what I kind of, in my mind, in the narrative, I'm starting to see the fact that you were able to work hard during school.
Yeah.
Enabled you to have a style and an idea about what you were doing, which is what people can see when they start asking artists to show. Does this person know what they're doing, or are they just fucking around?
Or like feel like they really burn for it in some way. Like I felt that in art school too. Like you could almost feel the ones who were like, this is their thing, like this is what they do.
They have to do it.
Yeah, they have to do it. And then it's some people who's like, what are you doing here?
Right. What do you really want? What do you really? Yeah, and like I think back, and I think there's probably a lot of people who probably looked at me when I was in school and were like, what do you really want?
Yeah.
And I always knew somewhere inside of me that I wanted to do it, but it wasn't until I had to make that choice.
Yeah.
Survive, sink or swim, that I became really serious about it. And so I'm maybe 5 or 6 years behind some people who are my age because they were at it from the beginning. But that's the thing about developing, I don't know if the word style. Do you think the word style? I mean, you develop whatever it is, there's something.
But that's also because people think I change style, or
people think you change style? I
don't know. It's like I don't get stuck with like a motive, because for me, my work is about like exploring my curiosity. So I don't want to get stuck in like doing stuff I know that I'm good at.
Well, that's the nightmare for some artists who just become famous for something, and that's it. That's what you do now.
And then it wouldn't be fun anymore. Like for me, it's about like, I don't know, you explore the painting, but you also explore yourself when you're doing it. So, it's a really weird thing to do sometimes, and it's really frustrating, and it can be like, I just want to give up sometimes, because it's like,
go back to that kindergarten?
Just disappear. But then it's like, you can't, because this is what I have to do. And
I realize that, sometimes I'm a miserable jerk, but I'd be more of a miserable jerk.
Yeah.
If I did it differently.
Yeah, I would be really
it doesn't
miserable.
get better,
No.
It's so interesting, that whole the whole development of it. But do you ever write about art?
No, like I write about my own work.
That's what I mean. Are you able to write what
Sometimes,
it is that you do?
Like, it can be nice, I think, because I do a lot of interviews as well, and it can help you, I think, when you get a question and you really have to think about it. Like, you open up some more doors that you haven't really laid focus on. So it can help developing as well, because I think when you talk, you start to notice things you think about and like what's important, and that can help me move forward in my work too, I think.
So there is some sort of brain involved in this too, because you talk about working with your gut about it.
Yeah, of course. Like, I'm really, it's all about like, when I paint, it's like power and like now and like intuition, but it's also some kind of like, I'm really interested in nature, like both outwards but inwards too, and maybe mostly like the space between them too, how everything is like, and I have, like, when I go to sleep, like, I can see all these unpainted paintings that are just waiting to be painted, but I can't really translate them. But I'm trying. But it's really, I think that's really interesting too. Like, you can see so much visions, and then it's really hard to translate them into our world.
It always looks amazing in your head. It's the best thing ever.
How?
That's the lifelong practice.
Yeah.
Right? Getting to the point
where... And that's why you always
can...
continue, I guess, because you want to get there. Like, you want to be able to, I don't know, do it and get it. And, I don't know. So it's like a struggle to...
Do you look at a lot of other art?
Yeah, like, now it's impossible not to do it with Instagram and stuff, but that's just through a screen.
Yeah.
And that's really different, I think, to see something through a screen, because you lose all of the texture, like the colors, everything is
Have you noticed that there's a type of art which looks better on the computer than it does in real life?
Yeah.
I've started noticing that, where I've looked at, like, let's say there's an art fair coming up and I look at who's going to show what, and I'm like, well, that looks tight. And then I see it in real life and I'm like... It doesn't quite, it's better on Instagram, and that's really weird.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that speaks to the nature of the way art is sold now.
Yeah, that's bad. So.
It might be bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I wanted, you were saying about how you look at, like, looking at other people's art.
Yeah, so through Instagram, I can see a lot. Like, and sometimes I can just get a little bit fed up. You know, you just want to, like, I don't want to see any art, like, I just want to listen to music or something. I don't know, it can get, it's like when you go to a museum, like, whole day or something, it's just like, it's too much. Yeah. And now, today, it's like everywhere, all the time, in your face, so.
It's tough, and there's the whole, like, I'm an animal and I want the habit of looking anyways, even though it's not doing anything for me.
Yeah, like sometimes you just scroll without looking.
Yeah.
It's like,
what am I doing?
But me and Jeanette, my gallerist, talked about this yesterday. Like, when you're looking at your phone, you're turning your head down, and that signals to the body that you're sad, because that's the way you stand when you're sad. So it's also like, I think the body is like getting even more...
Right, or curling into itself in some sort of way.
And that's like double negativity, because like so many people get like pressure from Instagram and like want to live this happy life where everything is perfect, and then you stand with this
just curled into a ball, basically. Yeah, I mean, there is it is a brave new world in terms of that marketing thing, and it's kind of interesting that you went, you started with a Tumblr, so you've been through a technology shift, or at least a what's popular shift, and I can only imagine that you are also active on Instagram. You are, because that's what we do. You know, the worst part is I have 3 Instagram accounts.
Oh, you have 3.
I have the podcast. I have my business. I run a dark room, and then I have my practice, and I keep them completely separate. But that means I have 3 different ones to check when I look.
Yeah. Oh wow. I would not.
I think it's one of those situations, like you say, they'll slowly start merging.
Yeah. But it feels like even websites these days aren't like so important anymore. Everybody's just like, what are your name on Instagram?
Yeah. Which is weird.
It's like the new business card. Right?
Yeah, that actually happened to me yesterday. And then a woman asked me, like, "Oh, do you have your phone? You can check me out on Instagram." And then I showed her I have this goddamn Nokia 200 or whatever. I was like, "This is my phone." She was like, "Oh, sorry." But I wanted to go back to, I think, I wanted to talk about your practice in terms of other people. So you had mentioned earlier Picasso has become more important, or like, when you were younger, you put it away.
Yeah, no, but my dad and my mom had a lot of art books when I was a kid, and like posters on the walls, and they loved Matisse and Picasso, and I loved it too. Like Henry Rousseau, I had a children's book with his paintings in, and I loved it so much. But then I think when I was a teenager, I was a bit like taking it for granted, like, oh, Picasso, but like,
that's my parents' type of art.
Yeah, and it's like everybody knows him, and like, but then when I was, I don't know which age, but like maybe when I was like 27, when everything, like keys started to like fall in place, and you're like, the coin falls down, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, okay.
That's why this is that way.
And it's like you see it again with new eyes, and it's like you can appreciate it even more. And I think when I make collages, I use cutouts from paintings, like books with paintings or sculptures, and that's also a way for me to study the work. Like, I don't sit and look so much in books when I do this, but I see some texture or shape that I want to cut out, and then somehow when I do this process, it's like you study the work at the same time.
Right, you understand it at a different level when you're starting to figure out which part you should take out and which part you should leave behind. But what about your peers? I mean, the people you're around. You work in a studio with 4 people.
Yeah.
Do they affect your practice at all? We
just moved in there last November, so we haven't been there a year. And one of them is my best friend since many years. And 2 of them are also represented by Steinsland Berliner. So we moved in and we started a group together called Atlasgruppen.
I was going to say, you guys are very close to each other, obviously, in a lot of ways.
No, it was really nice because I only have been in my studio by myself a lot of years, and I've been renting a studio, so I had to move out every half year. And then I bought this place, and I was like, I really want to have like a collective, because you can feel so alone sometimes when you sit in your studio and stare at the wall.
So unbelievably
and you
alone.
go there like in the morning and you sit and stare at the wall for 4 hours, and then you go home again.
What the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really nice just to have people around me that we became really good friends as well, and we started this collective together. So we're having some exhibitions together. We have our separate practices, but we can we have good talks with each other. It's nice to drink coffee with someone, and it's really...
It's also nice when you see someone kicking ass. You're like, I want to kick ass. Yeah. It helps push
and when
push
you're
it in some way.
You get stuck, you can go and talk, and it's really nice.
Well, I saw on your website that you did a collaborative project with a Norwegian. Is it an artist?
It was with Alexandra Kerpelovsky, my best friend, who I shared a studio with.
And that was obviously very different than what you usually do.
It was really like a playful thing for us. Because she got invited to do a performance in Norway, and she asked me if I wanted to do something together with her. So we started to paint on these big fabrics, and the next thing led to another. I took some old paintings I had and made a dress for her, and it was just fun, and we did it together, and it felt really nice to do something together as well, like a show in that way. I've never done that before. Like when I've been in group shows, you have your own separate thing, and they have, even if you have like a theme or something. But this was really like merging together.
More dynamic too.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like your work has been the kind of work that you make it. It's more or less flat.
Yeah.
It hangs on the wall.
Yeah.
And then you've let go of it.
Yeah.
But when you do something, those were photographs of a person wearing fabrics.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you see that as a future, as you keep working onwards, do you see yourself branching farther away from where you come from in that sense?
I don't know, like actually painting on canvas is quite new for me as well. I started with that like 2 years ago.
Was it paperworks before?
Yeah, before it was always paper, wood, like I was really like had a great respect for canvas. So
it's
I was
terrifying.
afraid
Canvases
of it.
are terrifying.
But then I got, then I started to work on silk. I stretched silk on stretcher bars because that was not canvas. So like,
it's okay. It was different.
Like I have to move slow when I like try to reach for it. It's like when I make sculptures as well. Lately they have been like flat and just painted on one side, like they come out for a painting or like a cutout painting. So it's like you have to like transition into it in some way.
You seem very careful when you're working with materials.
I'm not careful. I'm so messy. It's like my studio is super messy, and I hate to wash the brushes, and I'm like switching the waters. Everything just gets dirty, and like I put the brushes directly into the paint with different, it's like super messy. And I've tried to like structure my work, but it doesn't work for me to do it in that way.
But I'm thinking more in terms of like let's, the transition into working on canvas, that seemed to have taken a while. And that could be attributed to two things. Either you're afraid of the new thing, or you just have to beat the shit out of something and then move on. So you're not quite done with something.
Yeah, I think so. Like I have to, I don't know. Or maybe it was just that I was really afraid of the canvas, and I just like tried to go around it for a long time. But now I'm painting on canvas.
You did it. But I mean, are you interested in any other sort of like media in the grander sense? Video, photography?
I love editing video.
Okay.
I think that's really fun. I usually do it just like a lot of my best friends are musicians, make music. So I usually take some song they have and just cut up, because I like to film with my phone, and then I just have all this material, and then I sit for hours during the night and just edit. I think it's super fun.
But you haven't considered integrating that into your artwork per se?
Not yet. But like I think like it's also so weird because everything is possible.
That's like, the thing.
You get
that's
like,
good and bad, right?
It's so much I want to do, and like you carry around it all, you're like gonna burst someday.
Sure, and there's a lot to be said for focusing on something, and like you have ostensibly a whole lifetime of making art ahead of you, so there's no reason to hurry in that sense. No. But it's hard also to not get stuck.
Yeah, but as soon as I feel like I'm getting stuck, I usually switch medium. Like painting for me is really like physical, bodily. Like I move and I lay on the floor, like going around in different.
Sounds like video art. Sounds like performance.
And then like collage, it's really like peaceful, and like I can sit and move like one little cutout for like half an hour, because everything is like a puzzle that changes. And so it's like two different, not completely different, but sinnesstämning, I don't know that word in English, different moods for me. Like I almost never work on collage and painting at the same time. And collage I only do at home, painting I do in the studio. It's like different practices for me, but still gives me something to another thing. And when I feel like I can't do any more collages, it's nice to go back to painting, because then I can find something in the paintings that I can bring with me to the collages to like go in another direction, because I don't want to just get stuck.
You seem to be very patient. You don't have trouble taking time to work through something.
No, but I'm also really quick when I'm working. Like, even if collages are like a patience thing, it can still be like I could make 10 in one day, because it's like has to come out, and then it's like stop. I can't, like, it's impossible to do one. Like, it won't get anything, and then I have to stop, and then I have to wait it out, and then when it comes, I have to be ready.
Drop everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I'm always interested in is it's very hard to answer, but I like to ask people, where are you in this? If you look at a painting, where are you in that? Like
everywhere. I don't know. It's. I think it's really strange, because it's both so private. In some way, it's like, for me, I don't write diary or anything. For me, it's more my paintings coming out, and I can see different years, different paintings, different periods of time.
Well, you remember what your life was like when you made that too.
Yeah.
Whereas we don't necessarily when we see it.
But so for me, it's like personal, but it doesn't have to be that for someone else looking. And I like when a painting doesn't answer all the questions. Like, it has to be filled with possibilities, and you have to give it time. I think, like, in these days with Instagram and all those, like, you want everything fast, now. And with exhibitions nowadays, I can feel like people are like looking around like, no, they don't, like, you have to give something to get something back. And like, looking at a painting for a while can actually change your perspective on it. So people have to have patience, I think.
Yeah, and that's one of the weird things about being an artist, is you do have to, in a sense, let go of what you've made at a certain point, and you can't dictate the terms.
No.
And that's been really hard for certain people, because they put everything into it, and then some douchebag is like, nah, that wouldn't look good over my mantelpiece, and then walks away, And there was an artist, I already forget who it was. Someone was just on the program not too long ago who was talking about he had an opening, he slaved over the works, and then he has this opening, people come, his friend comes up and goes, yeah, nice video piece, you want to go to the bar? And he was just like, why did I spend 6 months doing this for my friend, someone I know, someone who's an artist, to be like, yeah, good job, let's go get hammered. And that's so hard to deal with. Yeah,
but that's what I told you before. Like, before on an opening, I just want to go home and cry afterwards, because it can feel so empty. It's something you worked on so much and it means everything for you, and then you show it, and then it's like, so now what? Like, you feel like a washed out a rug or something.
Yeah. You've just been completely emptied. Well, there is the postpartum. You've just given birth to something. Yeah. And then what? But it's also, an art opening is just about the worst place in the world to get any feedback about what you do. You may or may not sell anything, but no one's going to be like really digging into what and why and how, and that's just by nature the way it works with that market. I guess no one discusses why pants are pants at a store. Maybe that's just how it is. But it can be a very lonely and empty feeling.
Yeah. But last time I actually were really happy. It felt really good too.
And so when you could see yourself in them, and that felt okay.
It just felt the thing I was talking about, this honesty, that I wasn't like, it also, I've been working mostly abstract, and in this exhibition I had figures in them, like people, and it also felt really scary, because that's what I did when I was younger. Like, when I was 17, I draw a lot, like pencil drawings, and it was just like women, like girls or
Figurative.
women figures in like different settings. And then I moved away from that. And then I felt like this will never come back. And now it's starting to like come up again. And that felt like weird, because that was like my 17-year-old. Even if it's not the same thing, it has evolved during the time. It felt really close to me and like something that was mine. And then I shared it with people. But then when I saw that people really appreciated it and got happy, and like it felt so good.
But what about if they didn't?
Yeah, that would be horrible. Like, no, of course.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, some people, I guess, doesn't like it. But the ones who did and told me, I really appreciated it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the tough thing about putting yourself out there. Yeah. There's the whole idea of the artist who lives in the attic and paints, and every once in a while an art dealer comes by, slaps some money on the table, takes the paintings away, and that's that. But that's not the world we live in. And so you have to. I mean, how do you deal with criticism? Are you able to handle criticism well?
Yeah, I think so. It maybe depends on who it comes from. If it's someone I respect and like, I think I'm really good at taking it. But if it's someone I don't really respect, maybe I don't think about it too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it hurts the most when it's condescending. Yeah. You know, it's one thing not to like something, but if someone actually talking down to you, that's something else. But it's also a natural part. I don't know, was your school very critique-based?
No, not so. We had like meetings with our professors and their groups, and we had talks, but not so critical, I think. It was, or maybe I avoided it a bit.
Fair enough.
But actually, when I went to this preparing art school, it's a really classical art school. So we had to paint like croquis
drawing,
for 1 year almost. Or it could be like nude studies for 1 month, and you did the same thing every day. And then I started to get like really tired of it, and I did my own thing instead. And I got really critiqued by that. And also, I started with collages back then, and they didn't understand it at all. And the teachers, like, some of the teachers stopped talking with me because they thought, like, I didn't want to become an artist because I didn't want to paint in oil, and I didn't want to make nude studies every day. It was like, it was a weird thing. And it was one teacher who told me, like, Malin, everyone doesn't have to be an artist.
That's a moment, right?
Yeah,
when you have that
and
moment
that's
where you're
like,
what
I'm going to show
fuck?
you.
Yeah. But, I mean, do you engage at all critically, theoretically? Are you at all interested in art on the art critic, journalist,
I'm not
academic?
Not so into it, maybe, but I met this guy in school, Bergen. He had a lecture, and he's an art critic called Jan Vervoort, and he had tutorials with us as well. And when I met him, it was like, wow, this is great, because he opened so many doors that I didn't know that I had in me. And like, it felt like someone who really thought in the same way.
In terms of thinking about what you do, or?
Yeah, like I didn't have to. With everyone else I met when I had a tutorial, it felt like I always had to explain myself, and like they always came with like practical tips, and I was like, I don't want practical tips.
You should use a different type of brush.
And he was like, it felt like I went in therapy or something. It was really opening up, and he visited sometimes at the school and had tutorials, so I always had a meeting with him, and then we still keep in touch, and he has written some texts about my work, and it's really nice to have that kind of almost like when I miss those kind of things with school that you can talk about, I can talk with him, or if I'm having a show and I just want to talk about it with someone, I can talk with him about it. So,
it's important to have people to talk to, especially after school.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason I do this show.
Yeah.
Because...
And that's like our collective studio. It's also like, it feels nice to be able to sort things out in your head. And yeah, I don't know.
Do you think you went into abstract painting because you weren't happy with what you were doing figuratively?
No, I don't think so. It was just like, it just came natural. I didn't think it over. It was like everything I do, it's almost like I just let it go. Or I try to. It's hard, like it's really easy to censor yourself and start to overanalyze, and
probably one of the hardest things.
Yeah, and then it's so bad, like I don't think any good works comes out from that, especially not for me. So I really have to let go.
How do you do that?
It can be like what I said before, like drawing in the dark, or like just doing ink paintings, like quick, and you can't change it later. You have to just go with the flow.
So it's actually like practical, physical things to do to try to like loosen up.
Yeah. Or also just like we had like an open air party in Stockholm last week, and I make these big paintings that we put up in the forest.
Was that the ones that were like with rope hanging from the trees?
Exactly.
I saw that.
Yeah, and they're on plastic. And that's also like really fun because it's a completely different material. The colors and the texture change.
Right, the way it absorbs
like if you have water on it, it will like crack.
Right.
And it's really fun. And it was really nice to do that because it was so easygoing. And then it can also lead to that I'm like working easier on the next painting because I get that like into it. And
do you ever sleep?
Yeah, I sleep a lot, like a lot.
You made a show for an open air festival. You had an art opening, a solo art opening last week. You have Chart Art Fair this week, and then next week you have a show in LA.
Yeah, it's been crazy. But
are you going to take a break? Do you need to take breaks after this?
I think I'm gonna stay in LA for a week after the show, so that's gonna be my vacation.
You should go to Death Valley. It's beautiful there.
Yeah.
A little hot right
I've
now.
never been to LA, so I'm really excited about it. No, but I sleep a lot. Actually, I love to sleep, and I have sleep paralysis as well.
What now?
Sleep paralysis.
Is that where you wake up but you can't wake up?
Yeah, you wake up but you can't move, and you have like hallucinations that someone is in your room and it's like they tried to kill you.
How does that? Tell me more.
I've been having it since I was 14. So, and they changed a lot. In the beginning, it was really like shades walking around, being close to you, like really, like it feels like you're gonna die in the next second. It's like
that's brutal.
You wake up in your room and you see everything, but it's something that has switched. Like you woke up in a different frequency or something, and you can't move. So that gives it even more panic.
And it's not a dream necessarily. It doesn't feel like a dream.
Like when you wake up, it's nothing at all like a dream. It feels like it feels as real as anything else. Like you wake up exactly where you were in your bed, so it's still scary when you wake up, but it's the right frequency again. So it's like, but it's strange. But I also read a lot about sleeping paralysis, and that's like a gateway to having astral traveling. So I'm trying to
trying to turn this into something good. Well, I mean, that's a whole other world.
Yeah.
And that leads me, of course, to the question whether you see your work metaphysically at all. If it's a sort of like performative trance or something that takes you outside.
For me, it's when I paint and when I'm in it or when I work, it's definitely like a trance. Like time disappears, all the problems disappears, and it's a presence of something else, like a power. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's a special feeling.
But is it still you, or is it outside of you?
It's still me. But of course, I don't know where my visions come from or anything. But that's what I think is exciting as well. Like, I never know how the work will end up. It's something...
Yeah, I mean, this leads into... I was very interested in that whole world in my early 20s, reading Carlos Castaneda and experimenting with psychotropic drugs and that sort of stuff. And it's interesting to see you apply that to art, because that's never been something I've been able to apply to art. That's been a personal thing. But I mean, I guess it affects everything. If your art is your life, then it works on that level too. I mean, I was going to ask this moments of sleep paralysis. Does this affect your art somehow?
I guess so, because like everything affects my work, your surroundings, people you meet, like nature, whatever. It's like everything.
It's all there
in the mix. But I'm really interested in these kind of phenomena or things. Like I guess I could say I'm really spiritual thing. Like I believe in a lot of things we don't know about. And I think that's really interesting that we actually don't know about it, because so many people needs answers and like, what is this? Why does it mean? And that's how I see my painting as well. Like I don't want to give them answers. It's about exploring something and a curiosity, I guess. I don't know.
But I guess that leads back to art being a somewhat mystical practice.
Yeah.
Some sort of way to grapple with the world, some sort of way to understand the world.
Yeah.
Or at least do something.
Yeah.
In all the craziness.
Something that makes you happy, and like, even if it makes us miserable.
Which it does sometimes.
Yeah, like really, but you couldn't be happy without being miserable as well, so.
It's all balance.
Yeah.
It hangs together. Cool. Well, I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was really nice.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Undergang Armchair. The intro and outro music was kindly provided by Johnny Ripper, and today's interstitial music was provided by RC. You can find links to their music and tons of other conversations with great people on our youth hostel of a website, undergang.net. If you do like the show, we would appreciate it if you just take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. It helps others find us. Thank you for joining us.